working both on the bottom left and the bottom right side. Hero going to blink up to the north, trying to escape the situation, but you can see the firepower of this Zerg army. Levying so much damage on the Hero. You need to retreat from this position, Hero.
It's been a long day 2 here in Dallas for the ESL StarCraft II Masters Spring 2024 final, but we're not done just yet. So if you're feeling a little exhausted, make sure to grab some water, grab a snack, because we've got an amazing, interesting rematch coming up. The desk talked about it to full extent, so obviously these players need no further introduction. Dallas, get ready, make some noise, because this is going to be the last match for the night. It is Serral versus Shin.
Big Zerg versus Zerg match. Shin, one of the most ruthlessly aggressive and innovative Zergs from Korea. A player that always takes maps off his opponent here in Serral, but most famously, he not only took the map of the series and took away his chance of a World Championship a couple of years ago. It was a very big victory, a controversial victory, and one which is going to be in the forefront of both of these players' minds.
Yep, Serral may have won 3 out of 4 encounters against Shin, the man who was previously known as Ragnarok. But of course, Shin is the one who won back then, 2023 Katowice, with that famous or infamous, no matter how you want to put it, game on altitude. A game that left a lot to debate in the StarCraft II community. ZVZ is a fun one, Pick. It's always an explosive matchup. Historically, it's been an aggressive one as well. But I think especially ZVZ on this map pool, like the patch doesn't really have that much of an impact in ZVZ. But I think it's the map pool with a lot of these weird bases and crazy attack paths that are there, that could make this a very spicy series.
You know, I was looking at it and I was like, let's see how spicy we get. Obviously, the vetoes give a little bit away. And with the veto on post-youth for Shin, Serral removing Dynasty, it's very predictable. I'm like, of course Serral's going to get rid of the wildest map out there in Dynasty. But I was a little surprised that, you know, Shin getting rid of post-youth. I was like, hey, there's gold minerals, there's a weird in-base. You're a mind game player. You love your weird rushes and your greedy builds and this like mix and match kind of creative, aggressive play. I thought he'd leave that in there.
I couldn't agree more. The Serral veto is not surprising indeed at all, because Dynasty is just wild. It's crazy. You can gamble, something that Korean Zergs have historically loved in ZVZ. But yeah, post-youth is a great map to really make it weird, force a lot of Link Bane skirmishes and make it seem like you're tacking up, but then you're not tacking up, and then it's just more basic units. So I'm with you, and I'm sure that this man does not mind at all that map got vetoed as well. In the top left side of a standard map, Oceanborn, we're looking at the main base of the man who won Intel Extreme Masters Katowice 2024 and is of course already qualified for the Esports World Cup. Representing Basilisk, it's Serral.
And his opponent in the bottom right side, already putting a special twist on this early game. In the bottom right side of the map, the blue Zerg, he may be an underdog, but he always strikes, even when everyone counts him out. Right now, put your hands together for Shin. Went for a 14 Overlord in this early game. A very odd, slight variation, and he's rushed into his cast in his pool after a hatchery afterwards. So I'm not sure if this was just a slight error in his early game, but it just felt like he was a few seconds behind on a few of those drones. And I'm not sure if there's just an umming and ahhing, because it does look like the hatch cast pool timing ends up very similar to Serral at the end of the day.
We may be able to see everything, Pick, but I think even for us, it's going to be hard to truly understand where these players are where going in certain scenarios. Spoke a little bit with Lambo and Scarlet about what to expect of this ZVZ, and they say, well, they're both going to make a lot of roaches early on. Serral's going to make them because he wants to be safe. Shin is going to make them because he's going to fake Serral out a lot. He's going to make it seem like he's all-inning, and he will either commit or he's not, and it's going to be incredibly difficult, even for arguably the best scouter in StarCraft II history, Serral, to really always figure out what is happening. And that's what's going to make this a very exciting series. We've had plenty of long, epic macro games today. Even the previous series really gave us some fireworks. I think this is going to be one of these buckle up and enjoy the ride best of fives. And a lot of these games, I'd be surprised if we see multiple games go into double digits.
I love that statistic in the bottom right side. Serral's worst matchup, only just below 70% win rate in Zerg versus Zerg. A little bit tongue-in-cheek, that statistic. And of course, it has historically been one where Shin, Solar, a couple of the Zergs that have gotten the better of him in the last few years. Before that, Raynor was obviously a big thorn in Serral's side for quite a while there. And despite that, though, Serral's never really had a nemesis. He's never had a Zerg player that just kept beating him. He's never really had any player who got the better of him for a very extended period of time.
Yeah, the impressive thing with Serral is that even when you think somebody has his number, Serral will set the record straight, right? It's like, okay, you beat me once, maybe twice, perhaps even 3 times. But after that, it's my turn again. And then he can easily win the next 5 series in a row. Those are just things that Serral does.
Dominant always. He strikes back, and his planning is one of his best features. In recent years, Serral hasn't looked like just the ice scout and defend and do unstoppable late game like he was back in his early days when he was coming into the 4 in 2018. Serral now mixes in timing attacks. He cheeses, and he'll show the full gamut of strategies. He'll Nidus Worm. He'll throw out whatever he thinks will win the game. But against a guy who he's so favored in his mind like Shin, we may see him adopt that more defensive stance here in Zerg vs. Zerg.
One thing you could maybe say that I'm a tiny bit worried about before we really start paying attention to all the tiny details that I'm sure the ZVZ will offer, and plenty of things that we can keep an eye on, is that it may have been tough for Serral to play a lot of high-level ZVZs over the last few months. We know he's obviously been busy with the mandatory military service, but even in the few times that he's been able to play Zerg players in Europe, we don't have crazy many of them. Of course, Elaser and Lambo are around, and there's a couple of feisty up-and-comers, but with Reyna spending a lot of time in Korea, it's unlikely that Serral's been able to play a whole lot of games with him, even with or without ping, right? It's just maybe the time zones don't line up, so it could be a little bit tricky for Serral to truly figure out how he wants to approach his ZVZ on this map pool and on this patch.
Yeah, actually, you know, I was around and someone was asking Rainer, hey, did you play many games with Serral while you're, preparing for this tournament? And he just kind of had a bit of a laugh and was like, what, with 200 ping on NA and ZVZ? No thanks. We have not been practicing at all.
First 6 Roaches get fired up on the side of Shin, as Serral has gone Roach Warren first, is going to drop the Evolution Chamber. I really wonder if Shin is going to drop a lot of Evolution Chambers throughout the entire series. 6 Roaches becomes 12 Roaches real quick, and of course we haven't tacked up yet. There is no lair here yet.
Fake drone transfer.
Oh, yeah, but all the Roaches got spotted there. These Roaches were helping the Queen rather from behind. I think at this point Serral immediately knows what's up. Serral's also not played too greedy, right? No lair, no crazy amount of drones. He's got a 5 drone advantage. I would say that's the sweet spot in ZVZ. 2 should be totally fine in defending whatever comes your way.
This is a massive advantage because you're doing the exact same build as Serral, massing Roaches on hatchery tech, but you're up a handful of workers, and you have been for a good minute now. Now, obviously, he's building a spine crawler whilst there is a massive drones coming out for Shin. Shin is saying, okay, you figured out what I'm doing. I shouldn't keep rallying Ling Bane. Let's transition into the lair and the drones. But despite that, right now, he's got to keep acting scary. And he's actually going to commit in. Serral has a lot of Roaches. Shin's got to be careful. This fight will go very bad for him if he commits any further. He's got to get out of here.
Yep, he knows it as well, of course. This was a bit of a fake, and because of all the drones and the lair that got fired up behind this, now it's important that Serral was able to pick up on this. Serral still has those overlords at the bottom side of the map, so he'll see, all right, there are no units streaming to the other side of the map, no links being reinforced. Obviously, at this point, you are transitioning. I'm going to go ahead and transition as well, and I'm going to keep a very close eye on what Shin is going to do as soon as that lair is done.
Does see a lot of drones on the third, but getting that Ling into the natural. Not sure if he saw the lack of workers on that or not. That Zergling only got a glimpse of the mineral line, and of course, we know it's 53 drone mass Roach for Shin. Roach speed starts, and he is looking incredibly committed. As I say that, 2 more drones start up. The problem now for Shin is that he's stuck in this middle road of, am I going for a big Roach attack or am I building economy? Whereas Serral is 100% committed to a big 3-base, 65 workers, taking a 4th hatchery. He's way ahead on the economy. His upgrade timing's a little behind. That's the one thing that Serral's lagging on. But I feel like when you look at the army supply gap, right? If Shin moves across the map, is 10 army supply going to get it done? No, because defender's advantage for Serral is massive. Roaches will be popping out. He'll be able to set up the concaves, pull the queens to the front. Right now, Shin is lagging in this game. He might have to wait until +2 finishes and maybe some sort of like maxed out attack timing.
Yep, and hey, if he maxes out on less workers, he's going to have a slightly bigger army. I think a lot of people might be slightly uncomfortable with this position, but I have the feeling this is how a lot of the ZVZs of Shin are going to look like. Can't even imagine what happens in those custom games that he might play against the likes of Solar and Dark. Yeah, he's been here before, Pig. This is not unfamiliar territory for him at all. And Serral knows so far so good, but he's going to have to stay dialed in non-stop because anything can go wrong on any given moment in ZVZ. But I kind of like everything that Serral has been doing. He's going to get a spine crawler here up once more. Overseer Scout was perfect. Sees no Spire, no Hydra then, has nothing to worry about with a quick lurker or something. Nope, it's just about the Roaches, and as long as Serral keeps building the same amount of units, he should be fine. But a couple of those Ravages were exposed, and Shin actually gets a pretty good start to this engagement. but defender's advantage should be able to carry Serral.
So many more roaches coming out. Serral's +1 is not quite done, and that is very important. The +1 advantage for Shin through most of this fight. Finally, +1 kicks in, but Serral's numbers have already dropped pretty far. A lot more roaches popping as we speak. Queens go back to injecting the spine crawler on that north, doing so much damage. 30 damage a hit to those roaches. That spine crawler is doing so much.
If it wasn't for that spine, Serral would be in all sorts of trouble. But that spine was there. It finished up on the right moment, and Serral holds in the end. He's a 4-base Zerg against a 3-base Zerg that Shin. Shin continues to be aggressive, but Serral had so many units in production. You mentioned it, Big. 10, 15 roaches at a certain point on the production tab. Serral even confident enough to fire up +2 missile attacks. It seems that Serral has weathered the storm, and as long as he keeps having a perfect read on the situation, scouting non-stop once more. This is why we know and love you. And a double overseer scouting even just wants to make sure he's not missing anything, and he ain't missing anything. It's nothing but roaches, and as long as Serral continues to build the exact same thing with a slight work lead, 4 bases against 3, this should go Serral's way.
Serral is miles ahead. Shin is looking desperate. He's not been able to surprise Serral so far. He's going for one last desperate shove. If this one doesn't work out, it's pretty much game over. Serral moves in with the roaches flanking, trying to take out the Ravager. He knows he's got the numbers advantage, and Shin's supply is dropping. That is a clinical game 1 for Serral. No secret from the Finnish phenom.
That's a masterclass by Serral, man, from the very beginning till the very end. And you can really see that Jonah does not like the gamble. Jonah doesn't want to be like, I hope that I'm okay, or cut a couple corners. No, not a single corner was cut there. There's a reason why the other Europeans call him the helmet Zerg, because he's safe, he checks, he double checks, he triple checks, and he's okay with being a couple seconds behind in certain things, as long as that means he gets to play the same game as his opponent. And this was mega close, though, by the way, Big, and if it wasn't for that spine, I actually think this fight goes in Shin's favor.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very good timing, not having +1. I mean, that was one of the big things. Serral massively delayed this game in order to be so safe against the previous attacks. A lot of players used to rush the Evo chamber, and many of them still do. But Serral was like, look, this guy is so unpredictable. I've got to skip the Evo chamber. That's going to allow me to get up the 3-base income. While I don't have +1 range for this fight, I have an abundance of roaches. And look at the worker advantage. 11 workers up a gas geyser. The follow-up here, he just had way too much stuff.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was asking the boys as well about the Zergs and the Evo chamber timings and skipping certain things, and I was like, so Elazer was ahead of the meta. Yeah. And Lambo's like, not really, Elazer skips everything. And I was like, oh, okay. Because it used to be very common to go Evo chamber first and then a slightly later Roach Warren, but now it almost seems that in all the high levels EVZs, you'll see the Roach Warren go down first, because it really is the era of aggression. And Oceanborn is actually a slightly older map, but maybe you could have been able to get away with some of those older openings. But on some of the crazy maps that we are going to see that are upcoming, I think we're always going to see Roach Warren into Evo chamber. The safety first in ZVZ.
Safety comes first these days in Zerg versus Zerg. I mean, Serral, obviously, he was the victim of, like, Solar. A lot of Roach Baneling attacks took him out. So many of these clever little Roach Ravager Zergling timings have caught players off. The Carapace builds were swarming over people. And we've just seen that shift away from the early Evo chamber into the safety Roach Warren to secure the economy before you think about the upgrades.
Still a lot of people over here in Dallas. It's been an awesome day. The crowd's been loving it, you know. Obviously a slow start on the Friday morning. People still working or traveling to the event. But from the very beginning till the end here, the crowd's been awesome, very passionate.
I'm kind of worried we're using up our good games today, though, Kev. I feel like...
I know, you said this earlier.
How many nail-biters have we had today, man? It's been like 3-2s, nail-biting games, like that Beyond Dark series. Even though it was a 3-1, it felt like it was like a 4-3 or something. It's just been crazy.
Perhaps the patch and map is just that good, Pick.
Hey.
That this time around we won't live out that curse. As Pick is obviously referring to an old StarCraft II curse, where if we have a bad second to last day, bad quarterfinals, then the semifinals and the finals are amazing. But if our semifinals and finals, or if the quarterfinals are really good, then after the final day can be a little bit lackluster. I think it is safe to say that today has been a good day. But you know what, Piggy? Tomorrow's going to be even better.
Hey, we're here in Dallas, watching some StarCraft, and of course, the closest thing we got to a Texan representative. People have been cheering that he is from Texas for years. No one really knows why, but heck, let's give him a massive shout of support anyway. In the bottom right side of the map, representing Basilisk, put your hands together for Serral.
They just claim all the greats, as their own, eh?
One random guy made a dumb comment in Twitch chat. He never knew it would spread so far.
In the top left side of Golden Aura, we are looking at the main base of the man who also went down 0-1 in that quarterfinals of Katowice 2023. He's been here before, a Korean Zerg player, Shin. Seemed like he was checking the replay after game 1, and that's when he started smiling and shaking his head a little bit. Yeah,
I think that's like, oh, he saw everything coming. Like, that's all I can imagine. I don't think it was like, oh, I made a big mistake and was supply blocked at a crucial. I think it was just like, wow, I let that Ling in. Oh, that Changeling got in. The second Overseer saw that. Like, it felt like Serral just was not surprised at all.
Or perhaps he was laughing at those roaches, right? That he ideally would have liked to hide a little bit longer because, yes, he made roaches and he faked Serral out and he went up to the lair and the Evo chamber slightly quicker. But perhaps it was the original plan to fully send it.
Yes.
And he's changed his mind because it got scouted.
If you're building 12 roaches, ideally you hide the first 6 completely, and then it's only when the last roaches come out, that's when you move across. Then you let the Lings reinforce because they're so much faster. But not everything goes according to plan. And I mean, back in 2018, it was famous. I mean, we were basically laughing every Serral ZVZ cast because his Zerglings would just find their way in the base and run in circles, and he'd see every single thing. The famous Serral scouting Zergling is actually the reason why these days the players are so good with those wall-offs at the natural, because no one wants to let the Zergling into scout, because if your opponent gets that information, they're always going to be able to be one step ahead.
Yeah, but throughout this best of 5, Serral would obviously love to sign a piece of paper right now saying like, hey, every single game, we're going to go for similar openings and we're going to build similar units. And I think obviously the key to victory for Shin is to make sure that Serral does not get to play those games, right? That if Serral goes for safety, Shin goes for greed. If Shin goes for greed, that, you know, he gets away with it and that kind of stuff. Maybe one game to sneak in Aspire. The one thing that Shin does not want to do is build the exact same units as Serral. Serral has really been the very best in ZVZ when it comes to games like that.
Asymmetry is the key, and I absolutely agree with you there, Kev. I think the dangerous thing about Serral in recent years is he'll get up a game like this in a series, and the opponent will try to play mega greedy, and he'll hit them with like a 55 drone Roach Nidus. And he's just like, oh, you're trying to go mutas and 70 workers? No, silly boy. Like, I can hit timing attacks as well. And he's very good at mixing those in. So don't get me wrong, after game 1 for now, it is just a solid opening. He's scouting, but definitely keep your eyes on it because Serral's very willing to move across that map and commit to an attack, especially when he's ahead in the scoreboard.
It's actually worth mentioning that obviously game 1 was Oceanborn, game 2 is Golden Aura, 2 maps that have been around for a long time, right? They didn't get added at the most recent patch. If I was Shin, I wouldn't have done that. I would have actually gone for the new modern maps. And there's a good chance that he has played a few more games on those, especially when it comes to high-level ZVZ, because he's kind of playing into the experience of Serral. Now, of course, Serral's not going to be clueless on some of these new maps. We're like, oh no, I don't know how to play StarCraft anymore, but I would have avoided these 4 maps that have been around a little bit longer than the other 5.
Absolutely. I mean, you could tell he picked Oceanborn as the more rush-centric map, game 1. This is Serral's map pick. It's a bigger map. It's a great map for Mutalisks. If there is a map, you're going to squeeze them out. Lately, though, it's been very scary for players to get to Mutas. You can see those fast Roach Warrens. Both players are kind of on their toes going, are you going to commit? And to be honest, Shin's making Zerglings. He's going to go for a Ling Bane pressure, but he's going to follow it up with a giant Roach attack by the looks of it. Serral's up 7 workers. He's making a lair of his own. That's a lot of Zerglings coming out.
Yeah, but Shin is still building drones behind it as well, so I really don't think that Shin is going to be able to accomplish a whole lot here, Pink.
Yeah, very defensive with his Zerglings as well. Okay, now he moves out. He's got a single Baneling with it. It's a relatively light pressure. Serral's got 4 Roaches building, combined with his Queen, a couple Banelings, his wall off with the Evo Chamber. This looks like a rock-solid setup for Serral. This looks completely impregnable.
It looks like the Helmet Zerg is doing Helmet Zerg things over here. A single Baneling leading the charge for Shin, but that Baneling does not find a connection. Serral, of course, doesn't just throw away his own Baneling and a Baneling of his opponent. A few more Roaches on the way for Shin, as Serral, his lair is almost done. 11 drones is a lot of drones.
Oh my.
This is kind of where Serral needs to stop. He's going to try to get a little bit of information here, but a low HP Zergling doesn't really get to see a whole lot.
And these 2 Roaches.
Nothing that should make the alarm bells go off, but another
looks
scout.
greedy. That guy, he saw maybe the drones? I don't know if he saw that. That's an undersaturated mineral line, but I don't know if he's aware.
I don't think he got to see a whole lot, but at 57 drones, I think Serral will always stop building drones anyway for a split second.
He needs a spine, though. Honestly, I don't think he can defend without a spine. He's so outnumbered.
Yeah, he's done 24 arms play. Serral is actually the one building a Nidus network, but the funny thing is that is screaming aggression. That means he's going to build nothing but units. Nothing but units is what he needs right now. He has to cancel that Nidus immediately, and of course Serral is going to do that. A spine or 2 would indeed be very useful, but perhaps Serral feels that he already has the right amount of units. He is going to get a couple of safety spines and even the wall of it, the evolution chambers.
He needs it. There's 11 banelings on the way, Roddy. This is a massive all-in from Shin. He has got so many roaches, lings, and banes. He's going for it. Serral has a lot of roaches coming out. They're mostly in production, though. The wall-off is actually pretty smooth.
Wow.
Evo chambers buying time. A lot of those banelings not really connecting on the roaches. The Ravagers coming in the bios, forcing him back. Beautiful setup here for Serral.
I think Serral's totally fine here. The Queens are going to soak up a couple of these shots as well. One of the Queens is going to get picked off, but Defender's advantage is so freaking important in CVZs like this. And Serral with a 15 worker lead with a tech advantage is not just holding this push. He's absolutely crushing it as Shin is running out of steam already. A 40 supply lead for the Finnish Phenom as he's making it look easy. He's about to get his hands on +1 missile attacks as well. Could he have done anything better there, Pick?
Dude, that looked like when I was playing my older brother in Age of Empires as a kid, and I'd rock up with like 2 clubmen, and he'd have a stone wall with like arrow towers behind it. I was just like, that was impervious. No damage happened there. He lost, what, 2 Evos, 6 roaches maybe? Cancelled his spines in the middle of the fight. The spine crawlers didn't even need to kick in. That was a complete shutdown. And to be fair, it's a good map for defending, right? It's a long rush distance. It's a surprising ramp. But Serral, the fact that he was going for that roach timing meant he was perfectly set up. The 55 drone roach Nidus, a beautiful strategy. And Serral was a little confused there.
Yeah, because he dropped the Nidus network, right? Which obviously meant he's like, hey, I'm gearing up for an aggressive attack. I'm going to go ahead and bring the fight to you. And so he's like, wait a minute, you're attacking me? And then he didn't just hold, but he held absolutely perfectly. He passed that test with flying colors. Takes the 2-0 lead convincingly here in the final best of 5 today. And is now 1 map away from having a best of 5 against Oliveira tomorrow in the semifinals. I mean, these banelings of Shin did absolutely nothing. And by the time that these roaches finally got up to the high ground, look at the numbers that Serral is already working with. You would think it's a bit closer with the economic advantage that Serral had and the lair and the +1 missile attacks, but he made it look easy.
The concave as well with the roaches. And the funny thing is, we're like, well, oh, Shin should have changed it up. He shouldn't have done another roach baneling attack. And you're like, well, no, what's the other good play? Mutas. We're saying Mutas would be a good way to create some asymmetry. He was preparing a roach Nidus that counters Mutalist play. Serral has really thought this series out very well.
It's almost like he was preparing for an all-in there, but instead his opponent did it and he died.
Yeah. If you do an all-in that attacks into your opponent who's preparing for their own attack, and they're like, oh, I built this army. I thought I had to go to your side of the map to kill you, but you're coming over here. Thanks, buddy. No worries. Like, I don't even need to get the Nidus out.
And you can even pull the drones as well temporarily, right? If you feel like it is going to be close. We did see the drones coming on the left side of the hatchery for a brief moment, but I don't think it was really even needed. And that means we're already looking at a 2-0 lead in the final best of 5 of the day. For this man, your Intel Extreme Masters Katowice 2024 champion, representing Basilisk, it's Serral.
And in the top left side of the map, in the blue, representing the Gaming Gladiators, he has to dig deep. He has to make it work now and win 3 games in a row. It seems like an impossible task, but if anyone can do it, I know he can. In the top left side of the map, in the blue, it is Shin. A player who I always look up to. I think Shin's build orders are really genius and they're very hard to stop. It's a testament to Serral's skill and his perception, his preparation in the series, to how well he's dealt with it.
What do you make of Serral's opening over here, Pick?
My favorite. He's basically trying to be very safe against the 12 pool. Any sort of early rush struggles against a 15 hatchery, 15 pool. So this is an alternate economic opening. It slows your gas down, but your spawning pool and your hatchery are both up 11 seconds early, which means earlier queens, earlier zerglings. If Shin went for like a drone pool, 12 pool, anything like that, it would just get completely stopped in its tracks. So this is just an exceptionally safe way for Serral to open up.
Historically, Korean Zergs do like to be aggressive on these weirder, smaller maps, even though it's not even that short of a rush distance from natural to natural, but it really does feel like it is, right? It almost feels like your neighbors on this map. It does still take a little while, but this map could scream some very early aggression, early pulls, perhaps.
It's not Beckett Industries, right? It's not like the 27, 28 seconds, but it's still, like, I think, 31-second rush distance, which is 3 seconds less than the middle distance maps.
But it feels even shorter than that, right?
Yeah.
It feels like you're so awfully close to each other. And,
especially with like the ramp out front, you're third, right? Because often you don't have vision up there, so you don't really see their army until it's halfway across the map, and it's like, oh gosh, he's already in my base.
Shin is the first one to fire up Zergling speed. Obviously, the gas of Serral was a little bit later. There's a chance that Serral stays on 2 bases for a little while.
It's the natural way to play with this build. Is a lot of the times you go 4 queens. Because he's gone for the gas with only 2 workers, I think he's going to play a full 2-base build. So we are going to see 4 queens, very likely to go straight for lair when the next queen pops out in the main. And Serral has some really, like, you can play macro off this, don't get me wrong, because you're going to saturate your natural way faster than Shin. You're skipping ling speed, but you can also just walk your queens across. Like, this is kind of it goes into the alpha star push. I don't know if you remember that. It's just a ton of roaches. You drop creep out of your overlords, 3 to 4 queens walk across. It just hits a brutally fast timing. So that's something that he could go for.
Shin actually gonna go for an evolution chamber here before the Roach Warren this time around. He still has zergling speed on the way. Not expecting him to cancel it. I'm gonna keep a close eye on what Shin has in store for us here on Ghost River as he sneaks the zergling into the main base. Since Shin is a world-class zerg, I feel like he's probably been able to put 2 and 2 together by now. As Serral fired up zergling speed there for a little bit, cancels it immediately as soon as that zergling gets picked off, and he fires up the lair.
Very nice. He's got that quick Evo chamber as well. I imagine we're going to see that fast +1 range. He's got a bit of a wall off, and you can see it's a bit hard to wall off on this map with that Evo and Roach Horn, but of course with the double extra queen, it shouldn't be a problem. Already up 8 workers is Serral. Here comes a bit of a ling pressure. Serral's going to have to quickly build an Evo chamber in that wall. He's got to react fast.
Yep, he is going to do that though. He still has a couple of seconds. One queen has energy, almost enough energy to drop a transfuse. Thinks it's going to be okay. I wonder where Shin is going to go because he's got +1 carapace on the way for these zerglings. Zerglings will not have enough DPS to nibble their way through that evolution chamber. You can't really stay like this if you're Shin. You're going to have to either make up your mind right now, drop a Roach Warren, and still send it. He is going to drop a Roach Warren, but it's late, right? It's very late to be aggressive of this.
This is like a 3-base Ravager Ling, all in. And it's really good if Serral pushes into you and you surround and you land the Biles.
Yeah.
Problem is, Serral played a game just like this. I think it was against maybe Dark, Katowice. And if he realizes what's happening, like a lot of players do Serral's build kind of like an all-in, but he scouts with the Overseer. And if he sees what you're doing, he'll back off and he'll build that Roach count up, and because he's getting way better Roach upgrades, and you don't actually have an income advantage, even though you've got the 3rd base. Serral's army will scale better. Shin is basically looking to surround him and catch him out one time.
Shin is also firing up the lair as well. A few more overlords, and Serros is going to build a few more roaches. Obviously, these are going to be safety roaches for now, but by the time that the roach speed is going to kick in, +1 missile attacks might be ready. I mean, when it comes to roach battles, you much rather have +1 missile attacks and +1 carapace, as Shin does snipe the drone there. That's actually very nice. That gets a pretty decent delay on the 3rd base of Serral. So a little victory here for Shin in game 3, but he does have to pay a pretty hefty price for it.
Serral just faked carapace there. He saw the zerglings at his wall off, so he started carapace to make it look like he was going double upgrades, immediately cancelled it. And because his 3rd base is delayed, look at this. Overlord highway starts. This is that alpha star push I was talking about. Queen's walking across the map. They're going to start taking out the overlords. His roaches will rally out behind it. He's got +1 in roach speed, about to kick in, and he's not started a 3rd hatchery. Serral, very committed to army right now.
Kind of feels that Shin has the right tools to deal with this, right? He's got +1 carapace himself. It is going to make his roaches a tiny bit tankier. He should be able to defend on top of this ramp, and that might force Serral to go the long way around. That is obviously going to give Shin extra time to crank out even more units. Right now, the roach numbers are incredibly similar, which should always favor the 3-base player, but Serral is going to make a couple ravages. With a couple, I mean 5. 5 ravages definitely better than 1, but this is going to be really, really tight. I kind of think that Shin might be able to hold, but it is hard to dodge those corrosive balls, right, if you don't have roach speed yet.
Yeah, Biles and Queens getting quite a few overlord pickoffs. This is actually really good value. Shin's now lost 3 overlords. He has similar roach count, and +1 range, remember, is going to give a little bit better value to Serral. But if Serral full-on commits, he may get overwhelmed by the numbers advantage. Transfuses are so good, though, and those Biles forcing Shin to back off.
That's a big victory for Serral there, as he doesn't lose a single unit. The Queens indeed are able to spend the vast majority of their energy. Corrosive Balls is still going to force these roaches to disengage over and over again, and that means that Serral's taking a very good fight on the left side. Some of these balls are connecting on the top side of our screen. Shin, of course, has defender's advantage, but Serral is getting a phenomenal start to this fight.
Those Ravages are destroying. They keep forcing Shin to disengage. Every time the roaches are dodging, they are not attacking, and the numbers are beautiful. Serral, oh my gosh, landing the Biles, even getting a triple overlord snipe. Serral commits hard to the 2-base push on the small map, and he does it in style.
Just like that, it is all over, and it will be Serral advancing into the semifinals once more, where he will...